Jared Galde, welcome to the Leadway podcast. How's it going?
Excellent, bro. Glad to be here.
Oh yeah, it is a Friday. Not getting released today, obviously, but yeah, it is a Friday, so we're almost there at the end of the week. But pumped to get you on and talk about sober living. I had another guest on recently that where we were discussing it, and it's a huge area of opportunity right now with the real estate market the way it is. So I'm just excited to dive into it, see how other people are, producing cash flow during this time, and so for those who haven't heard your name before, could introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Sure, yeah. Again, it's Jared Galde. I started real estate investing in 2016. Been really a full-time in real estate since 2012. I started as an agent, realized I didn't want to do that at all. And when I got into real estate investing, it was really because I wanted to be a pastor. I wanted to be in ministry, and I thought of a way of having passive income would be a good way to be in ministry. I didn't want to be taxing the church. And so that was really the motivation behind it. And in 2019, everything shifted. The first sober living house in my hometown, Marysville, Washington, came across our plate, and it really shifted everything. Growing up north of Seattle, I was mad at how heroin and the opioid crisis had really taken over my hometown and our region, and turned some of the streets into zombie land, and I didn't love that at all. And really, the first house kind of took it from where I sort of had a hardened heart for people in recovery. I call them the lepers of our generation. A lot of times people don't want to. They've burned every bridge that they have, every family member, every relationship, every dollar, everything that they had, this drug or whatever is stolen from them. And so that first house, everything changed. I decided to kind of take a risk and buy that house. The A friend of mine had it listed for 579,000. Somebody told me that they'd sign a lease for $6,000 a month for 5 years, and that sounded different. But my first reaction was like, I don't think that we should do that. This is a nice house. I know the mayor and he lives right over there and he's not going to be happy with me. And I decided to take that risk. And the first person to move into this house, the first core member was my junior prom date. And
Oh,
and so like the everything shifted that day when I see Amy. The last time I saw her, it was like she weighed 80 pounds, getting in the wrong guy's car, doing the wrong stuff.
mm,
And now I see this woman with life back in her coming up the stairs about gonna move into this house that I'm buying, and that shifted me. So before 2019 was over, we bought 10 more houses, and then I built a fund to buy some more houses before 2020 was over. In the middle of COVID, we owned 36 of them, and then that when interest rates did what they did, we shifted the plan again, and we had a high net worth individual who came in and partnered with us and bought another 30 houses, and at that point we were in like 17 states and really just spreading out like wherever the need was for the different tenants that we were working with, we would go there. And so, fast forward to today, I've really sold most of that, and now I'm really focused in the Phoenix, Arizona market and in that metro area. I live here in Dallas, and all we do is sober living and behavioral health, from single family homes to multifamily to motels to commercial, kind of anything that people need in this realm. We work with the operators of the houses, and we're the real estate company that helps supply the spaces for them.
awesome. Awesome. So yeah, I wanna kind of jump back and break all of that down because that's a wild ride from being a pastor all the way to where you are now. Tons of sober living, homes, selling, and then doing this. So this is a completely different model, but I want to jump back to, being the pastor and like, you know, because I'm sure you were sold on the cash flow like everybody else was when they first get into the real estate, but what was that life like before the real estate? Like why did you feel the need that real estate was the way to go and create that income aside from the church?
Yeah, it's good. To clarify, I was not a pastor. That was like
Okay.
the vision I had, right? And that was what
Gotcha.
I was trying to kind of like step into. I'm still a guy today where I look at the local church as like I'm called to be a servant leader there. I'm called to be there. And I sing on the worship team. I'm there all the time. I lead men's ministries. That's part of what I do. And so I sort of wear that hat unofficially and always have,
Hmm.
and so that's where that vision came from was like, I want to keep doing this, but I don't want to be a financial burden to the church. I want to be a blessing, right?
Hmm.
And so that's where it came from. I was not a pastor, but that's really what it was. Is I had and all of the honor to my church up in Washington. I live in Texas now, but I was in a board meeting and I learned that we spent almost 80% of our budget on staff. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Like I'm not going to
Wow.
be a pastor who soaks up all the money. If we're supposed to change the world, how are we supposed to do it if we can't get our money outside of these doors? And so that's really where the vision of passive income and real estate happened. Now I see passive income as a myth.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody I talk to at a high level, they're like, dude, passive income is not real. It's
Yeah.
it's more passive than other things, but yeah, so in the beginning of that real estate journey, were you looking at flipping homes, wholesaling, or did you jump straight into the sober living homes?
Yeah, so I started as an agent in 2012, and I started working for a few flippers and finding them properties and then listing them on the back end. And once I found myself sort of doing everything for them at that
Hmm.
point, and I think a classic entrepreneurial spirit of like, okay, I can do what these guys are doing, and why am I not doing it? So I was driving towards passive income, but in my mindset, like I thought I needed to go make $1 million to then buy some houses. I didn't know anything about burring properties. I didn't know anybody I didn't listen to Bigger Pockets at that time. I got into
Hmm.
that and all those things. Read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Didn't, I had a lot of learning to do at that point. So I thought I needed to go make $1 million. So I started flipping houses, built a construction company because contracting was really freaking hard to figure out at that point.
Hmm.
And nothing was passive about it. And quite frankly, I was sort of a struggling real estate investor when sober living found me.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's so how many, did you have rentals at that point, or you were strictly just, flipping and just flipping, right?
Yeah, yeah, flipping, wholesaling, still doing some real estate sales, right? Kind of whatever was in my hand is what I was doing. I had no rentals at that point.
Yeah. So when this first sober living home popped up, what was you know, what was the catch on that to where it's like, okay, they're gonna pay me, it obviously meets the 1% rule, 500 and some $1,000 house, $6,000 a month rent. How did that come about to where, it popped up for you and you said, this sounds like a great deal?
Yeah, for me, it became a mission really fast, right? And so I'm a, I'm I'm the first one who just wants to have a vision and drive towards it really, really hard. And so like when I had that vision of passive income, I didn't necessarily know how to get there, but this property opened my eyes to it. And the circumstances around the property, and I had a financial partner come in like at the exact right time who's like, hey, if you let me in on this deal, we can buy a lot like it and I'll keep money coming forever. And
Hmm.
I was like, huh, I didn't know people like you existed, right?
Yeah,
So
that sounds great.
yeah, that sounds like a wonderful plan. Let's do that.
Let's sign up.
And so that's really where it came from was like at that time it's like, okay, the first day that I looked at the property, I was like, well, how the hell am I going to do this? I'm going to take basically my whole nest egg, put it into one property, and that pays me 1,500 a month, Like
Hmm.
how am I going to do that? And literally the next day I had a few conversations and he was one of them that that shifted everything where it's like, oh, we can raise money and do this. Yeah, let's do that. I'm in.
Wow. So, yeah, I like to emphasize on that point because the first real leap into real estate is normally the toughest for anybody. Whether it's, they start listening to the podcast, they start talking to people, go out to meetups, and then actually buying that first property or first couple, it's crazy. So being able to, take that on and say, okay, you had flipped plenty of houses by then. You had wholesaled, you know what the game is, but being able to take on something of that size that's going to be, end up being a sober living home, it's a completely different step. So you're kind of like back at square one. So, I want to or I want you to walk me through like how the operations went on that one, and then we can build into how you scaled. So what were the operations like on that first one to where you really could start building some SOPs and figuring out this game?
That's good, man. Well, great question. I think that uh, I use this context for my life that I'm called to just jump out of the plane and tell the story of how God builds the parachute. And, 2012, I jumped out of the plane of corporate America. 2016, I jumped out of the plane of real estate sales to go into investing. And 2019, I jumped out of the plane to see how God was going to build this machine around sober living. And so the first one was, I mean, I literally was swinging a hammer to build out the garage, right? I built out we took a 5-car garage and turned it into a 2-car garage with 3 additional bedrooms. We took a 7-bedroom, 6-bath house and turned it into a 10-bedroom, 6-bath house, right? And so with that one, it was like all hands on deck. I literally, built it, got the permits, got everything going on the first one, and it really was just like whatever it took. I had the time to do it. I sort of had the skill set, if I'm being honest. I had people that helped me do that. I am not your. I didn't like have a background in construction. At that point, I had remodeled my own house using YouTube just so that I knew what the hell I was doing, getting into flipping, right?
Oof,
And then I
been
watched
there.
plenty of contractors do it, right? So it was just whatever it took. And like I said, that's my context. It's just like if God's calling me there, I'm jumping out of the plane.
Yeah, I love that right there because you're gonna learn so much, and then as the systems progress, you're like, oh, there's people that do this way better than me, and you can just focus on what's your special part right there. So being able to be super hands-on in this, I'm sure you really had your heart in it. Being able to build it and then actually getting it rented and helping those people out. So what did the system look like, renting out specific spaces? Was it just one specific company that was renting the entire house and managing it, or how did that all work?
Yeah, so Oxford House is a nationwide nonprofit. I don't do a lot of work with them anymore, but they're nationwide and they lease a lot of houses nationwide. And so they're the ones who approached my friend who is the agent who had this house listed. And she's the one who's like, hey, she called me and she's like, Jared, this I think this is right up your alley. Like you're gonna love these guys. And she's the one who introduced me to them. And it was just a master lease. So I signed on that one. We signed a 5-year lease for $6,000 a month, and just like and locked that in long term. So it was a master lease on that one. I would say that that's most of what we do still to this day. We work with a lot of different smaller operators. Oxford House leases like 4,500 homes nationwide, and without throwing them too far under the bus, in my opinion, they're dealing with some scaling issues. And
Mm.
it's we worked with them a lot. I've opened almost 100 Oxford houses at this point, and 7 years later, I'm working with a lot of different operators not named Oxford House, but that first one was a master lease to them. Now we do master leases with all sorts of operators around the Phoenix area. That's how we do it.
Yeah. What's some of the regulations that you have to go through to be able to sign these leases? Because I'm sure it's not just, hey, we found a house with the right bedroom count and we can build it out, add a couple more walls and a couple more beds, and let's sign the lease. So what are some of those hoops you have to jump through?
That's a great question. I would say that in the simplest format, Oxford House has won at the federal Supreme Court level to protect a status of disability where you have to have a reasonable accommodation for them, and you have to treat them almost as if they're a family next door, and you don't have to get any special permits. And what they do is they'll roll into a city like this house is in Marysville, Washington, and it was like their seventh house in Marysville, Washington. They roll under the radar. They're not trying to get permits. They get a bunch of houses going, and then by the time the city catches wind of like, hey, what are these houses? Like a neighbor calls in or something happens, right? That
Hmm.
triggers somebody looking at it. Oxford House will start filing lawsuits against the city because they've won at the federal Supreme Court level, and nobody messes with them at this point.
Wow.
And so that's what they do. Now, they're what's considered a level one house. So they level one means that they're like peer run, peer led. And so they have a staff member that'll oversee 20 to 30 houses in a region. And within the house, they have a voting system. They have to stay sober. They have to go to meetings. But basically, they're like I mean, for lack of a better term, the inmates run the asylum, right? They vote and
Hmm.
they run it themselves. And the houses there are level two houses, level three houses, and level four houses. And so a level two house really has a house manager that's typically like a part-time staff member paid that way, get their bed and then some money on top of that. Level two houses, you do in a lot of different state to state, city to city, county to county. The rules are different, so it's important to know the rules locally. But level two houses, level three houses are like there's real staff on site. Doctors will stop in, nurses sometimes on site. You have to get a different kind of like a treatment license for that, almost like an adult family care home, something like that. That level of licensing, right? And then the level four is a full-blown residential treatment center that you've got to license it that way, kind of as a commercial asset. So
Hmm.
there's a spectrum of those things, and like anything else, you've got to know the local rules to play the game.
Gotcha. So what's your involvement at this point? Is it yeah, what's your involvement? I mean, once you sign that lease, they're doing the managing. What are you specifically doing? What's your involvement with Oxford House or these different companies that rent them?
Really, as a traditional landlord, you can be as involved as you want in this space, right? So, like, if I have a normal family living in my rental property, I give proper notice. I can stop in do an inspection of my rental property, right?
Hmm.
A sober living house, like I'll text the manager of the property and say I'm going to be there in 10 minutes, and I'll knock on the door and I'll walk in, right? And so basically, I've heard some people say, and some very noteworthy worthy investors say that leasing to these people is like it's almost like a triple net lease, and that is so freaking far from the truth. You've got to manage the asset so that they can manage the people. If you are hands off, some of these organizations will freaking destroy your house. You need to
Mm.
be a hands-on landlord who's maintaining the property so that the people inside the property can recover and they can work their system.
Yeah, so you're I mean, you're probably doing multiple check-ins per week, if not, every other day or something like that.
It's certainly not that much by any means, right? So like picture, it's not like it's I don't mean to make it sound like a terrible niche or anything.
Yeah, but
It's you're not we're definitely not checking in that much, right?
okay.
So I would say in our system, if it's flagged as like a problem, we're gonna check in once a month. And if things are running smoothly, we're gonna check in twice a year, right? And but like you can for us at this point we can know pretty fast. There's a lot of in-house triggers where we know what's going on. If rent's late, something's wrong.
Mm.
If someone calls with a weird maintenance request, it's like, okay, we're gonna inspect what's going on, right? So there's a lot of triggers internally that we have where we're gonna inspect fast, where we don't have to check in daily by any means. We can sort of check the temperature of it. Now, if you're opening your first house, we're talking to that investor here on this podcast, if you're going to open your first sober living house, yeah, just check in all the time, see how it's going. That's it. Make yourself known, be like, hey, I'm here. I'm not here to be the police. I'm here to love on you, but guess what? Like we got to take care of this house because it's not about you. It's about the next guy who needs this bed, and we're going to keep taking care of this house long term, and I'm here to make sure we're doing that.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. So, let's jump back into your story. So we bought this first one. How did it scale from there to be able to, what would you say like how it scaled year by year, up to COVID and then transitioning?
It was it became a calling in my life very fast. And so uh that first house, we basically were like, okay, we asked the question of their staff, like, where else do you need these houses? And it came back everywhere pretty fast, right? And for anybody who's listening, it's like the need is massive. And I mean, we provide like at this point we provide a lot of turnkey assets in the Phoenix market for like high level W-2 people to come in and buy. Like we package them up and you can buy these things. And I'm saying that to say that just in the Phoenix market, we believe there's 100,000 bed shortage. That's just in Phoenix. And think about the country as a whole, the need is massive. So when we asked that question right out of the gate, they're like the need is everywhere. So then it got to be like, okay, what does everywhere mean? Well, how can we help? Who do you want to introduce us to who needs our help now? And so we actually got introduced in Arizona, then in Colorado, then in Northern California, and we decided to spread out pretty fast. And it was like, okay, wherever you need us and wherever the numbers work is where we'll look and we'll analyze. And hired a couple of real estate coaches at that point who knew systems of out of state investing and like how, like this is we need somebody who's going to help us. At that point, guy named Tarl Yarber helped us a lot because he'd invested a lot in systems. He had built a lot of systems. He'd flipped a ton of houses, and he worked with a lot of contractors. So, we paid him. We backed up the truck to pay him for a little while to teach us systems and how I could get really plugged in these different markets and how I could build those systems around that. And we bought 6 houses in 4 markets in the next couple of months right after that house. And that story is I'll keep it short, but put it this way, we learned that one, you really, really, really need to ask your DSCR lender if the funds need to be seasoned, if they're not going to be seasoned, right? Well, if you're raising it from friends and family and from everywhere, like we were, they really care how they're going to source those, how you're sourcing those funds. I did ask that question of our lender, and they were like this kind of like salesy guy who's like, "Oh yeah, I'll be fine." And then we get 6 days away from closing the first of what was going to be 6 closings in 8 days. And he basically threw a wrench in the whole thing. We're not closing any of them. The underwriter doesn't like your funds, and we're closing the book. So
Oh,
what
wow.
I what I did there is just a sense of like I think that if you're doing sober living, and I would want someone to know that if you're feeling like doing this, it's not some easy way to make profit, although it can be profitable.
Hmm.
And I think it gets portrayed that way sometimes. And there is nothing easy about helping people out of addiction, and not even on the real estate side. And so this was like God showing me that nothing was going to be easy. And so I had a choice to make. I could be like, okay, we're dead in the water. I'm 6 days away from when I'm close to this first house. Or I could decide that I've just now promised 48 people beds in these houses because 6 houses times 8 beds was 48 people. And those people mattered to me at that point. And so my decision was like figuring out how the hell I was going to close these properties. And I put my primary residence on a 20, like I tried raising money everywhere I could. Like I had raised what was in my vicinity. The guy that
Hmm.
I said who said he'd keep money coming forever, didn't have enough to pull that off, like right off the bat. So it was like, hey, all hands on deck. And so I put my primary residence up for a $330,000 note at 24% for 90 days. Did a hard money loan, closed those things. I basically needed 35% down instead of 20% down is the best I could find. So did it and refinanced those properties as fast as I possibly could. I got that dude his money back on day 99 when I had a 90-day note. He wasn't being mean, but he was like, dude, we made a deal. I'm gonna take your house back. Like that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm and at that point, we just did whatever we could to make those happen. And then it was a lot smoother after that. That was like the test, is how I see it. And so from there, like I said, we built a simple fund where we, LP GP relationship. We gave a 8% preferred return to them and then did a 50-50 split after that. And we bought 26 houses in that structure before interest rates went crazy and that structure didn't work anymore. And so we went as fast as we could. Interest rates did what they did, and honestly, we pumped the brakes for about 9 months because we didn't know what the hell to do when interest rates went to like nine. And they weren't even these properties weren't cash flowing. We were kind of with everybody else, right?
Hmm.
And the tenants weren't adjusting because they're used to being like, oh, if we can hit the 1% rule with investors, like we're good to go. And I was like, hey, if we can hit the 1% rule, everybody's happy. Like, let's roll. And then when I come back and I'm like, well, the 1% rule is now the 1.3% rule. They're like, no, it's not, the tenant side. So we sort of pumped the brakes for about 9 months to figure out what we were doing. And at a real estate event, I think it was the Limitless conference that we had talked to this guy who's a high net worth individual who really liked what we were doing. And we just made a 50-50 partnership with him. It was sort of the same structure where we gave him 8% pref and then we split everything after that. And we went and bought another 30 houses in that structure. And that was probably like 20, late 21 through like 2023,
Hmm.
30 houses there. And then we started getting more strategic and back to like the the basics of real estate investment, right? And
Hmm.
we started branching past Oxford House and learning how many different people are in the space and how big the need is, and learning that we could work with for-profit treatment centers and nonprofits that are helping people. There's just so many different ways we could help, that we started getting a little more creative. And at that point, we had a lot of credibility. So we started just raising simple debt at 8% to go buy houses. And that made it more fun. There's a little more profit in it for us on that
Yeah.
side.
That's
Yeah.
that is a roller coaster of events there. I mean, all the way from the beginning, it's kind of like God giving you your test. Like, hey, are you really built for this? Do you really want it? And you answered that, and then what it's proven for you since. So I think that's the best way to sum up that roller coaster. But I want to jump into some of the operations during this time because obviously you're managing a ton of beds, but we said, the Oxford House is managing a lot of this. So, what did the operations look like being in different states and having that many beds at one time? Like,
I
what
think
what what
the
was the team, and how did you have to manage those separate locations?
yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of there. I'll preface this first with saying that I will probably never own a property management company again. Uh, we built the property management company because we saw it was like we have a clear niche,
Hmm.
and as we spread across so many states, at one point we had at the point I closed the management company, we had 51 zip codes and 130 houses, and we had a very small team sort of running that, and we did a lot of subcontracting around the country, and so the only way I could describe it is chaos, and chaos for my nervous system. And I was the one running most of it for the most part with kind of helpers along the way. And rent collection became an absolute pain in the ass with Oxford House around 19 different states. That's part of what I was saying. Like some people think it's sort of somehow automatic. You're going to collect rent from this nationwide nonprofit who collects $30 million in grants every year. It is not automatic by any means. When we had 130 houses under management, any given month at the end of the month, we could be $200,000 behind on rent.
Wow.
And it was a mess because you could have relapse, you could have turnover in the houses. The people are paying their own way. It's not some government guarantee that you're getting paid by them, right? And so rent collection was absolute chaos. Then maintenance was absolute chaos. It was managing so many different people. I mean, when AI really started to come in, it changed the game for us, for sure.
Yeah.
So
In what ways? How were you using it in the beginning compared to now?
in the beginning, it was answering calls and routing to different vendors, right? We use a service called Vendoroo as that came on board, where they kind of built they took our vendor list, input it, they built this AI call center that would kind of take the call in. You sound sort of creepy, natural, and they were good at it pretty fast. And they would take the call in and they would take it to text. They would get pictures of it, and then they would dispatch vendors. I would say that worked like 60 to 70% of the time where they would actually dispatch the vendor and it would work, right? But that was a game changer for us because we were able to at that point have at least a little margin in the management company rather than spending it all on staff. And so AI was answering things, was dispatching people. It was, scraping for new vendors for us, for new relationships for us, things like that. And how we use AI now, I mean, how don't we use AI now? I have completely proprietary systems in-house. I mean, in the Phoenix market, I know where every single sober living property is. I have at my fingertips, I have every single zoning thing per city, per county built into a system. The second I put in an address, I can know if I can operate what level of sober living house there or treatment there. I can skip trace the owner instantly of any given house. I have an on button to send direct mailers to leads. AI is constantly scraping for those things, constantly scraping for investors that own sober living houses that we can work with, constantly scraping for operators that we can work with. Um, yeah, it's kind of like how don't I use it now?
Oh man. Yeah, it's so fun to see just how quick all of that's developing, and it's around that time now where it's been out for a couple years. It's going to be really cool to see some of the things that people have built to be able to help other people, go forward in their business. Um so you mentioned that you're using it all over. You're mainly in Phoenix now. You've let go of some of your property. So what does today look like for you? And what's a normal day look like from the point of you know 2023 kind of ish when you stopped compared to now? What was that gap looking like?
Yeah, all the way up until I closed the management company 3 months ago, and I sold the rest of my properties 2 months ago. And
Wow.
so I'm actively in, I would say, a rebuilding phase. Right now, we have 25 units in the Phoenix market under construction and moving. We're really back to our off-market force appreciation, ways of how you really do real estate investing. We bought a lot of turnkey properties along the way that just worked on a cash flow sense for us and investors. And so all the way up until I would say April, I was the busiest guy, you know, and man, what God's done since then, right now, I have an absolute team of rock stars that I get to lead and cast vision, set a standard, send the money, do the things that actually lead the mission rather than just being in the weeds of it, frankly. And right now we are cranking in multiple different directions. I was telling you, if I would have told you, if you and I would have talked 3 weeks ago and I would have told you we were kind of approaching capacity issues today, I would have laughed at you. But we are cranking in that market in Phoenix, providing all sorts of beds for people right now.
Yeah, and are you solely focused on that market out in Phoenix, or do you still have some other rentals out in other areas?
No, literally sold them all to it was so the business partner I was telling you about that I started with,
Hmm.
he's got young kids and wanted to go kind of more into like commercial direction and things like that. So we decided to end our partnership this year and he bought all of the properties from me because I was just like I was ready to I was ready to rebuild and centralize and get back to the basics of buying off market and fixing them up. And so we have such a rock star team that I've connected with. My team out of the Scottsdale area is just is amazing, and so I'm only focused in that market. I don't as of today. Well, as of June 1st, I owned zero rentals. Today, I have I don't know 5 or 6 and 25 units under construction.
Oh man. Yeah, so it's a fun time in life for you. I mean, you're not restarting because you have all the knowledge from what you did and you're better prepared to go out and do it on your own. So what's been the big difference doing it with a partner compared to doing it on your own now?
I think that there's like anything in life, you partnership's really hard. Let's put it that way. Marriage is really hard. Partnership is really hard. I've been married to my wife for almost 20 years, and that's been a journey in and of itself. And so, partnership was hard. I think God gave us a lot of tests along the way, and whether it was like my ego or his ego, like it doesn't really matter what happened. It's like when visions sort of collide and you don't have like the same exact direction to go or at least have say like, okay, cool. You tell us where we're going and then I'll go there. Or I'll tell us where we're going and then we'll go there, right? It's really hard to do a partnership. So I'll say that to say that I'm actually really, really grateful that he gets to do what he wants to do now, and I get to do what I want to do now. And God used that whole season and blessed both of us. We learned so much to kind of go build what's next. And I think business divorces, partnerships break up, they can get nasty, and I'm really thankful that ours didn't. It was like it's time to go separate ways. And so yeah, it was hard towards the end. We didn't have the same vision. And it was like when we wanted to run in a direction, there's this weight of the management company. There's this weight of things that the things that didn't necessarily come together like we had envisioned. And in the end, I believe that both of us were released to go in two separate directions, really, really excited about it. So
Yeah, it's gonna be a journey, and that's exciting. I mean, you've been doing it with somebody for that long, and I know Rich Summers. If you listen to him, he talked about what happened with his partners. He was in a group of partners buying apartments, and eventually, like they were just moving too slow to where he went out on his own and then just exploded. So it's going to be really cool to see like what you have built already going all in on one market, just, how quickly it builds back up and, where you go from there. Now is that something to where you can kind of build um where you can be renting out directly, or do you have to be paired up with one of these companies like an Oxford House or, other treatment centers? Or can you be going to the person renting from you directly? Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we're doing a little combination of both, but for the most part, we really know that it's our job to provide the real estate for all these operators. And so we do now have a nonprofit that I am on the board of. Great friends of mine, one guy that's on my team who builds all of our AI stuff and manages our construction. Interesting mix of a guy that he's done construction his whole life, but for the last 5 years, as soon as AI started being a thing, he's been way ahead of the curve. And I mean, it blows me away when I'm like, I would like see our system do this, and an hour later, he's like, done. Anything else?
Wow.
That's how crazy AI is now. And so he kind of does both of those things at this point. And what was the question?
Yeah, if they're renting directly from you, or you have to work with one of these companies like an Oxford House or
Yeah, yeah, got it. So like I'm like, why am I talking about Matt? Because I love him so much, and I'm thinking about our system so much right now. Like got kind of got off track there. So yeah, he started on the operational side of this. So he has a story of recovery. And so when he kind of found me, he started operating sober living houses and created a nonprofit with his brother where that's what they do. And so I'm on the board of that. So we're opening houses now for that side that we're We sort of operate them, but it's a separate entity, right? That operates them, and we provide the real estate still within steward companies that we do, and then we work with a lot of operators. So right now we're actively opening houses with about 10 different operators and treatment centers in the Phoenix market. We're actively marketing to 293 operators in the Phoenix market to say, hey, we're here to buy your real estate for you. And so that's our main model is finding those operators, figuring out what they need, and we go get those properties and lease them to them.
Gotcha. Yeah, that sounds like it. Now, have you done that before, or is this a completely new thing that you're taking on?
Well, what we've done is we've leased to organizations the whole time
Hmm.
now, and it's almost always been like word of mouth. The recovery industry is a tight-knit industry, so like those operators have come from word of mouth connections, and a lot of times Oxford House is like I guess for lack of a better term, it's a gateway drug into working in recovery. Whereas like, a lot of those people will go get higher paying jobs for treatment centers and things after a couple of years at Oxford House. And, as they leave there, they're like, hey, I know these investors and like they'll buy us properties. And that's actually a huge value to whatever they bring to their organization is knowing us where we can come buy their next building, right? And so now this is very much so new where we're doing strategic marketing to every operator in that market. I mean, we have three different marketing engines going. We're marketing to every single operator. We know every single human who owns a sober living house in Phoenix, and we're marketing to them to kind of like be investors in our stuff and providing turnkey opportunities for them because that's how we flip properties now is we'll find a tenant, know what they need, then we'll go buy an off-market property that they've walked, we'll build it out specifically for them, get it leased, and then we'll sell it to a new investor. That's kind of our cash side, rather than our holding side.
Mm, interesting. Interesting. Well, Jared, this has been awesome. Before we wrap up here, like I know we talked a little bit before the podcast started, but what are you working on now that you're excited about that's coming up?
I think some of what we just talked about, man, I'm really excited to get back to the roots of buying really, buying really distressed properties and transforming them. We're in the business of transformation and sober living. We like to see humans transform, and I love seeing properties and communities transform. And so that's what we're working on now is really going deep rather than wide. And so as we step into Phoenix, what I'm really excited about continually is knowing that we're providing a great product. And like I said, the main thing that we provide for people is turnkey opportunities for them to buy these themselves. And most of our clients in that regard are like pilots, dentists, doctors, high level W-2 people
Mhm.
where they're like, I know I should buy real estate. My tax guy's saying I should buy real estate, but how the hell am I supposed to do that? And we provide those opportunities where it's like, yeah, you can have some depreciation, but you also don't have to buy a house that costs you money every month. You can make 1,500 or 2 grand a month buying a house and have that depreciation and the tax savings at the same time. So I think that's what I'm most excited about is continually providing those opportunities. We love helping people on both sides, right? So those people that we serve where they know they should be buying rental properties. It's fun working with them and providing them a really cool service, but transforming communities and houses is my favorite.
Yeah, that's gonna be an awesome thing to watch. You be able to grow and do that out in that Phoenix market. And where can people go to, connect with you, keep up with your journey?
Awesome. Yeah, our website is stewardhousing.com. And you can find it's Jared Galde on any major, social media platform.
Perfect. Perfect. Jared, this has been a good one. It's so cool to learn these different strategies and what's working and how, we could be doing the same thing and you're doing it one way and I'm doing it the other and you're, doing better than somebody else. So, it's a really interesting time in real estate where everybody's looking for cash flow. Where do I go? Where do I pivot to? And I think sober living, as you described, is one of those strategies that, hey, if you do take on, the headaches and take on that type of hard, this is what it can look like. So it's great to see what you're doing out in the Phoenix market and how you're helping people. So Jared, this has been a good one. And for those listening, I'll link all of Jared's information in the show notes below. But Jared, thank you so much. This has been Jared and Chris on the Leadway Podcast.